Hi, Nick Granville here. I thought for today, this lesson I'd talk about the style of jazz guitarist John Scofield. To call him a jazz guitar player is only really one part of the equation. He really plays like kind of modern bebop, blues, with a funky kind of angle and all kinds of stuff about it going on in his playing. So I thought that's what I'd sort of talk about today. So a logical place to start is to probably start with the sound that he gets. Now you can get this from any kind of humbucker guitar. You can get it from a tele as well, or a kind of single coil guitar, but it's much easier with a humbucker guitar. And one way he gets his sound is he plays on the bridge pickup a lot. Not always, but often. So put it on the bridge pickup and then wind your tone control back a bit. And what you're trying to get is get it to that point where it's just warming up the sound quite a bit. You're kind of taking off that harsh edge that the bridge pickup gets. I really like this because it's a very dynamic sound. When you hit it hard, it's bright, it's going to open up, but there's warmth because of that tone control wound back. So that's the starting point. And then the other thing he does is he uses a drive pedal. So a rat pedal, or I use a Cusack Screamer or a BB preamp, all these different drive pedals, and just set it so the drive's just breaking up. You don't want that kind of heavy distortion, you want it kind of so it's clean when you play light, like this. And then if you hit it hard, so that's kind of like a horn player, right? If a horn player blows hard into a saxophone, there's this kind of edginess that comes about the sound, and I guess that's what he's going for. Okay, so the next thing to look at is the kind of articulation that he uses. Now, this is a big part of his playing. The articulation is one of the key features for me that I can tell within 2 or 3 notes that it's Scofield playing. And one thing he does is he, instead of picking every note, he hammer-ons and pulls off. So hammer-on is picked one note, but I've hammered on the second, and pull off is the reverse. Right? So a phrase that maybe goes, here we go. Which is really cool because it's kind of like a horn player would play. If you thought of a tenor saxophone player, they wouldn't articulate every note, but it would sound horrible. They would kind of a breath of air to make the notes come out, and then they would re-articulate where necessary. And I guess that's what he's trying to do. And the way I worked on this is by creating exercises for myself. So for example, here's one that I did a lot. So if I was working on hammer-ons, I would go take B flat mixolydian starting from the F, right, and then right, and work on those. And what I'm trying to get is trying to get them even, not or. Right, we're not trying to get that, we're trying to get. And with those hammer-ons, what I'm really doing is I'm actually hitting quite hard on the fretboard, so it sort of sounds like that. You can hear. And of course, pull-offs would be the reverse. Now, pull-offs are always going to be weaker, so they require more work. And of course, you could do that through the scale. Now, of course, there's people that probably do that sort of legato style much cleaner than Sco does, but I don't think that's actually the point. It's sort of, he has a certain way of doing it, and that's the key point. So working on those exercises, you know, these are different things I'll do. One I particularly like doing is going across strings, because that's kind of much harder. So for example, if we're in B flat mixolydian again, So there I have B flat and C, and then G, A flat, B flat on the top. And there I'm using Lydian dominant. Here's the sharper Lydian. Right, and you're trying to work on getting this so that it sounds like you've got control over it. That's really the key, so that you can choose when to articulate notes. So I might do, there I did one hammer onto there, and then I repicked the third note rather than just all hammered on. And that's much harder to do, and it requires a different set of control. So creating exercises to work on these things is really important. Another thing that Sco does is he plays a lot of slides. And the way I worked on this again was by creating exercises. So take B flat major 7 arpeggio, for example. Right? And trying to get it so you can do that accurately and evenly. Now, of course, he doesn't do any of these things kind of in a row. It's not like he'll do a whole thing of hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's kind of a combination of all of these things. But you want to work on being able to do them strong so that when you require these techniques, you don't have to, your fingers don't have to think about it, so to speak. Okay, another part of his articulation is that he bends notes, and this is one of the cool things. For me, it's never made sense why people don't bend guitar strings. I mean, I can understand if you're trying to sound like a piano player, but you know, guitar can bend notes, so I reckon take advantage of that. To me, that's a cool thing. As long as you're doing it in a way that makes sense. And that's one of the key things with Scofields playing for me, is that when he bends notes, it's not really like a rock guitarist or a blues guitarist. So a blues guitarist might go, you don't really hear Sco doing that. It might be, it's kind of these smaller bends like a horn player would do. I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to emulate a horn player. And the way I worked on that is just working on creating a limitation for myself. So I'd go, right, I'm never going to bend more than one semitone. So if I'm on a G, it's never going any further than that. No, that wasn't in tune, but see that there? So, and if you combine that kind of bluesy-ish bending with some bebop vocabulary, slides, all these things, you sort of start to approximate the man's style. Now, you're not going to sound like him because nobody really sounds like him other than him, but you know, you're drawing on this influence. Now, one part that's a big part of Scofields playing when it comes to melodies is the way he harmonizes them, which is great. In a quartet with saxophone, guitar, say bass and drums, which is a common format he uses, he will play double stops, and you know, kind of like Chuck Berry. That's sort of a Chuck Berry type thing, you know, with these double stopped notes. Well, Sco uses that in his own kind of unique way. He will do, say the melody goes, he will go, but not all the time. It's kind of just maybe one or two notes or a few notes. So is that tune, right? Eisenhower. Right? And he will kind of go, you know, sort of just grabbing a couple of notes as double stops, and that's pretty cool because it creates this kind of sense of the harmony. You have the saxophone playing the melody, then you have Sco creating two notes, then the bass note, and you've got this strong sense of the harmony with it. And he plays that quite a bit. Another way he kind of uses two notes is this kind of major 7 interval thing that he does, and there's two that I hear him playing a lot. For example, on dominant chords, if we're on B flat 7, wait, yeah, B flat 7, he will play the flat 7 and the 6 as a major 7 interval. right? So we have the flat 7 and the 6, so A flat and G on a B flat chord. And he'll use that as a pivot point. So you can hear there I sort of overdid it a little bit, but so I can demonstrate it, but so that's quite a cool sound. The other one that I hear him doing quite a bit is playing from the 7th, which in B flat would be an F, and then playing the sharp 11 on the top. So it's a major 7, but it's really the 5th and the sharp 11, so it creates this kind of cool tension, and those tend to be the two that he pivots around. Now, of course, he uses other intervals and things, but these are two big ones that I hear him using. The other two I hear him using a lot is using fourths. You know, so taking notes of fourths makes perfect sense. The guitar's tuned in fourths. Fourths are a real modern kind of sound. You're hearing a lot of modern jazz, so those two intervallic things, you know, sort of get you in that ballpark. One thing I haven't talked about yet is his use of bebop vocabulary. Now, if you check out his solo on Not You Again, which is a contrafactive, There Will Never Be Another You, there's a whole lot of really great 2-5-1 lines. Now, what I've done is I've sort of borrowed those lines and incorporated them into my playing, and then sort of they've become my own over time. For example, on the A flat major, when it goes to there, there's a 2-5-1 that goes B flat minor, E flat 7, A flat major, and he plays this lick that goes something similar to that. My memory's probably fading me a little bit, but it's against the root notes there. It's something very, very similar to that, and for me, I really like that. It's kind of a typical type bebop lick, but what's happened over time is that sort of morphed and become my own sort of thing. It doesn't really, if I went back and checked out how he played it, it's probably quite different from how I'm playing it right now. Some of the notes might have changed slightly, so I transcribed that off that record. In fact, I transcribed that whole solo, but I grabbed that little bit, and then I learned how to play it in all keys. The same thing in right, so being able to use it in all keys and assimilating it is really the key, and that's something I hear a lot of people missing. They transcribe stuff and then they never look at it again. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. The whole point of transcribing is that once you learn it, you want to be able to do it on your instrument and be able to play it in all keys and use this material as vocabulary. So that's probably a big thing. His vocabulary is kind of like this mix of blues with bebop vocabulary, with kind of a modern take, and it's all kind of meshed together to make it what it is, and that's just how he's done it. And so if you kind of play this way, people are going to think you sound like Scofield. I get told that all the time. People say, oh, you sound like Scofield. No, I don't think I really do at all when you really get down to it. But they kind of hear me bending some strings and a bit of drive on the bridge pickup with the tone back, and these sort of influences I've used, and then therefore they think, okay, that's Scofield, because on the surface that's what they see it as. But if you go deeper, his playing is way more complex than that. And his playing is his playing. He sounds like him, nobody else does, and I kind of have my things about my playing, but I'm definitely influenced by him. And if you look at his influences, I'd say two that you should probably check out would be B.B. King and Jim Hall, because those two, once you check out those two, you probably get a bigger, greater insight into the man's playing and how he developed that style, because it's definitely something he developed. It's not just by chance that he plays this way. Okay, I hope that's been useful. If you have any questions, just send me a message below, leave a comment and I'll respond. Look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of that stuff. If there's stuff you didn't understand, you want me to just explain further, I'll do my best to. And yeah, thank you very much. Cheers.